Ladies and metalfish, one thing I find fascinating about Series 1 OCG are all the exclusives that actually saw meta play. Sure, cards we're familiar with, like Summon Skull and Sangan saw play, as did more obscure cards like Musician King and Silver Fang, also including later TCG releases such as Skelengel and Kunai with Chain. So today, let's take a look at all the cards stuck in the OCG that did see some level of competitive play overseas. And at the end, let me know which of these you'd like to see imported over in the West. I'm Janjo, and this is the right place for you to be. The first set that would include anything of value would actually not be Volume 1. Rather, Booster 1 had some interesting meta picks. At this time, the meta was all about the equip strategy to give the duelists an edge over opposing beaters. More monsters meant more flavor for specific equips, whether it was Aqua or Warrior. Power of Kaishin got more targets in Water Element and Twin Longrod's #1. Beast Fangs with Sinkar, the original Pale Beast. Book of Secret Arts now has access to Hurricane. A legendary sword can now be used with Doron and Vishwar Randy. Even the terrible Violet Crystal Zombie deck could run Graveyard in the Hand of Invitation. Plus, equips aside, the two new dragon monsters in Wicked Dragon with the Ursat's Head and Yamatano Dragon Scroll could now be played purely on the relatively high attack in the face of Tier 3 monsters. All of these don't have anything too interesting to note individually, however they still had merit given this humble format. In similar fashion to Volume 1 and Booster 1, the next time we'd see OCG exclusives take flight would be in Booster 2. The set was big in regards to expanding the tribute mechanic in a post-starter box era, which meant the expert rules were now in effect. Nevertheless, the equip strategy was still the popular one. Thus, the boost in stronger equip magic filtered the better builds from the suboptimal ones. So, sure, you could run Akihiron with Steel Shell, but it was actively worse than piloting a deck revolving around Elf's Light or Invigoration. Surprisingly, Volume 3 would be the first core set with some OCG players. Given the contemporary card pool, Akihiron would rise up again thanks to Takraminos giving the water deck a decent beater option, should you still prefer equips over the ever-increasing adoption of good stuff decks. Likewise, Barrel from Booster 2, alongside the recently released Fairy's Gift, gave some credence to a Yami deck to focus on spellcasters and fiends. I wouldn't say these are tier 1 by any stretch of the imagination, however it was a fun rogue option at the very least. And if you're enjoying this video, consider engaging with it via liking or sharing it out. YouTube loves that kind of stuff, and it helps push this channel into the algorithm. If you want to support me directly, then Patreon is a great way to go for as little as $2 a month. As Series 1 progressed, the amount of feasible exclusives would trickle down to a small amount. When Volume 4 rolled around, Dokurorizo the Grim Reaper would stand out in a unique way. This is a fairly weak zombie, something that would have loved to be in the Volume 1 or Booster 1 meta. Funnily enough, the low attack stat is where the Reaper's strength lies. With the Duel Monsters 2 promo card, Crush Card Virus, Reaper became a solid target alongside a few others, Dark Artist, Mask of Darkness, and Temple of the Skulls. Safe to say you had options in the Mask Virus deck. It would be a while before anything else came up, and even still it would only be in the Rogue tier. Volume 6 added the Attribute Boosters, which, much like the Equip Magic of days past, gave a buff to colorful strategies. The only one worth mentioning here is the anti-meta wind deck I created that plays cards like Bladefly, Blue Winged Crown, and the OCG exclusive Air Eater. At this point in time, the strongest low-level beater in Gemini Elf is debuffed thanks to Bladefly's effect to weaken all Earth monsters. Then slap on a buff to the strongest wind monsters in Crown and Air Eater, and suddenly you have monsters that can beat over Elf and Summon Skull respectively. Hey, it's something worth discussing in my personal opinion. And that's where the exclusives would stop, aside from incredibly niche scenarios. Like, sure, you could make a deck that includes Doriado, but that defeats the rough purpose of this video. That said, it's important to bring up all the cards that were almost stuck in the OCG. Not every card is Dark Magician. This is to speak to how often cards throughout the game's history only receive 1 or 2 prints, whether it's Series 1 cards like Monster Eye, Happy Lover, and Battle Warrior, or later releases like Wetlands and Black Root Drago. For a while there, Speedduel were doing an admirable job bringing long overdue cards to the TCG like Fiend Kraken and Hourglass of Life. It makes sense that Konami wouldn't import every single week vanilla, because why would they? Take up a slot for a better card? Series 1 really found its footing in the latter half of its run, filled with usable cards with usable effects. But all of the missing cards are still part of the game's history that the TCG deserves to be part of. Let alone all the amazing art of cards long forgotten, like Abyss Flower, Gate D, and Lord of Zemia. Counterpart cards existing already or not. Weather Report is not the same card as Weather Control, and neither is Air Eater to Aerial Eater. In some ways, the Memento archetype is a sort of trade-off to this, to resurrect dead cards in a new fashion. Would it be so hard for Konami to start a Lost Cards initiative and include a couple in specialty packs or sets every so often? I mean, the Memento cards are right there, give us some of those. I doubt it's that hard, for it's a borderline crime that we've yet to see Horn Imp in any capacity. But what do you all think? Is it worth Konami's time to make an attempt to give TCG players access to all the cards in a reasonable manner? Or are they better off remaining part of the early OCG's allure? I'm curious to what you all think. And until next time, duel on, passionate duelist!